Hey guys, this is Gail Kim from Impact Wrestling, and you are listening to the 8-Bit Suplex Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the 8-Bit Suplex here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Joining me as always is Miss Sandy Gaviria. Sandy, how are you?
I'm good, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm, keeping busy this week. Lots of Impact Wrestling this week, which is always always a good thing. Maybe not always, but this week I think it was a pretty good thing, Sandy.
I think so too.
I think there were some good matches. We're setting up pretty nicely here for Bound for Glory. But because of that, if you tune in here for the video game portion of our podcast, I will tell you up front, this one is going to be because of the Victory Road show. We are going to be focused 100% this episode on Impact Wrestling. We'll make it up to you, video game listeners, maybe next week, maybe the week after, whenever we can find the time to squeeze in an 100% video game episode to fit in. Maybe we'll do a bigger topic that we've been avoiding, Sandy.
Pokemon.
Well, maybe if we want to jump right into Pokemon, maybe, I don't know. But that's your maybe I don't know tease for stick around this podcast. We'll knock your socks off with something, whether it be a full episode of Impact, a full episode of video games, or a mixture of both like we normally do. But anywho, I say, Sandy, without further ado, I think we just jump right in here because we got a pretty big show, a longer show than I expected in Victory Road, and then a pretty good, standard size episode of Impact, but a lot to get to here.
We have absolutely a lot to get to, but hey, overall thoughts of Victory Road before we get started and dissect this awesome pay-per-view, the one right before Bound for Glory. I think we're setting up lots of really good storylines. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I thought the matches, most of them were pretty good. And then, like you said, we're setting up a lot of stuff for this month. And we're coming out of Victory Road looking pretty good. First Impact episode afterwards is pretty good. What were your overall thoughts here, Sandy?
I was really impressed by this pay-per-view. It was very easy to watch. It came out about, 3 hours, you would say? I can't recall.
Under. Yeah, just under 3 hours.
Just a little under, yeah. It was really fun to get through. Like you said, most of the matches were fantastic. I really love the stories that they're telling here, and I can't wait to break it down with you, Josh. Let's get started.
All right, well, let's go do that. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm not normally one that watches Impact as it comes out because I don't watch any wrestling really as it's airing because that's just the life of a dad. So I actually though had the opportunity to watch Victory Road from the start, and I thought this was on my end. The video for the first match was awful. There was all kinds of buffering issues. The audio stayed constant, but the video was chopping along, which was a real shame because I wanted to watch Triple XL and the Rascals, which was our opening match here on Victory Road. I was kind of like, well, whatever. So I wound up actually saying to myself, they're going to come back and they're going to fix this later. So after it's done airing, I'll come back and watch it later tonight. So I actually turned it off in the middle of the first match to come back later. But then when I came back later, it was still choppy. So I watched the first match choppy. But from what I saw of it, it looked like it was a pretty fun match.
Oh, that's a bummer to hear about your connection issues. Hopefully, if we get the opportunity to watch Bound for Glory, we won't have those issues. But I watched it after the fact. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it on Saturday saying stupid work. But I watched it after the fact, no buffering issues. It was a perfect replay on the Fight TV app, which is always a great. I love the way that Fight TV app works. But we
Yeah.
started out, like you mentioned, with the Rascals, Des and Wentz versus Triple XL, AC Romero, and Big Larry D. So, like you mentioned, it was it was a really fun match. Poor Wentz on the at the start went on the offensive to AC Romero, and he did a whole lot to barely even move him from the center of the ring. It was like he was fighting a big boulder of just a big mass that just would not move. So that was pretty funny. We have that dynamic of the big guys versus the little guys. I like the match. I wanted to know did we know this match was going to happen from the previous Impact episode? Because I'm having a hard time remembering, or was it just kind of
No, so they only had
for
six
the moment type
matches.
of
They
thing?
only had 6 matches teased ahead of Victory Road, and I think we wound up with 9 total. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, we wound up with 9 total, so we only knew about 6 of them ahead of time. This was not one of the 6, so I was surprised when the music kicked in. I believe
I was really
Triple
surprised
X,
too.
yeah, Triple XL came to the ring first, and I will say that I did talk to a friend of the show and former guest host Dan Coffin, and he watched after the fact, and also Impact had put out a thing saying, "Sorry about the video, it's now up, no
Mhm.
problems." So I should go back and watch this match now with no problems. Um, but I kind of feel like I don't have to because we saw this match again on this week's Impact, which we'll talk about
Sure.
we'll talk about the run back later. But we do, we get a win here by the Rascals defeating Triple XL.
But Josh, I really actually think you should go back and watch this match. There were a couple of spots that really just had me completely floored. Larry D actually does a Falcon's Arrow to Des, and it was absolutely killer. Of course, he's so much lighter, and he was just able to pick him up and spin him around like it was nothing. Me and Logan were watching, like nobody kicks out of the Falcon's Arrow, but of course he kicked out. This is still in the
Right.
beginning of the match. Um, Dude, there was a spot where Larry D was just kicking Dez in the back of the head, and then he made him actually spike bump from those kicks. And as he did a spike bump, he grabbed his legs and turned him around for what I remember it being a power bomb. It was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. But if you do get a chance, I would recommend going back and watch that. I've never seen that before. And then we see those kicks at the end from to the head of Larry D from Des. And like I mentioned, every single time we talk about the Rascals in this podcast, the kid is a star. I will put money that as soon as he finishes up his Impact Wrestling contract, WWE, if they're not already, they will be reaching out to Des. This kid is a star.
Yeah, no, he definitely. I feel that way about 2/3 of the Rascals, and it's not for a lack of ability, but I don't think Wentz has carved out as much character as the other two. I think he's obviously a very talented worker, and he's definitely a huge part of the Rascals and their makeup. Um, but I'd like to see a little bit more personality out of him, a little bit more character work. But yeah, Dez is definitely. I mean, Trey Miguel obviously is the most individual ready, and that's why we see him in so many solo matches these days. But those guys are definitely a lot of fun to watch. Great to see them get onto the Victory Road card here and victorious over Triple XL. The next match up,
Agree.
we get a little bit of an old school matchup here with my good friend Tommy Dreamer. He didn't send me a message about this one ahead of time, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what to expect. Tommy, you got to get at me, brother.
Out of the loop.
You got to keep me informed. But I actually enjoyed this match. It comes in just under 11 minutes. Brian Myers does get the victory over Tommy Dreamer. I don't know that there's too many spots to really talk about or call out, but
Yeah.
it was an old school, old fashioned. Now, not old school rules. It was a regular rules match, but it was an old
Mm.
fashioned regular rules match. A lot of grinding, a lot of you know selling by both guys here. I thought it felt a little bit emotional too.
It was definitely old school. We had lots of good old chain wrestling to start the match, and it went on for a while, actually. Very different from what we used to see from Tommy Dreamer. Of course, his whole hardcore, no DQ, chairs, kind of things, his whole shtick, right?
Right.
This wasn't it. This was Brian Myers, good old, the professional wrestler, and just tearing down his mentor, Tommy Dreamer. And like you mentioned, Brian does go over on Dreamer. It was a clean finish. It was kind of strange though. He beat him with a very strong lariat to Dreamer. So it wasn't anything.
Yeah.
He didn't. It was a strong finish just because he didn't have to cheat or anything. He won over clean. But no, none of his finishing moves. It was just a very strong lariat, and that put Dreamer down.
And I will say, I did write a couple things down. One of the things that kind of tickled my fancy, so to speak, was right after that first little bit of chain wrestling, Brian Myers kind of taunted Tommy Dreamer with the "You still got it" chant. I thought that was pretty funny. And then I thought it was interesting because Tommy, he kind of looked like he was kind of selling an arm injury. I couldn't tell. It didn't seem like it was a part of the match, and Brian Myers didn't work it. So I was kind of like, okay, is Tommy kind of banged up? Did he actually? Because on the arm drag after the chain wrestling, it looked like Tommy was kind of doing the squeezes to get the feel back in his hand. And normally when you see something like that, the other wrestler will go and work it, and it turns into more of an arm match. But he didn't work Tommy's arm really at all. And like you said, he didn't use his DDT finisher. He used that lariat, which is kind of an interesting kind of switch there. And then there was the back and forth where Tommy Dreamer grabbed the rope on one pin, and then Brian Myers, the next pin attempt by Tommy after his DDT, put his foot up on the rope. So there was the kind of that 50-50 kind of look to it. And I think that's maybe why they changed up the finisher to say, okay, it took Brian Myers digging in deep to get another move out, another thing to get Tommy down. But no, I thought it was overall a pretty good match.
Strong observation. Yeah, very straightforward wrestling match.
Yep, and so we go right after that straight into another episode of what I call the Moose Chronicles, where Moose, I have it on good authority, is now a personal friend of yours, Sandy. Much in the same way, maybe even more so than my friendship with Tommy Dreamer. I don't know. I'm not saying that. Some people are saying that. But Moose is backstage and he's asking Scott D'Amore where EC3 is. And he gets a talking to by Scott D'Amore and then about how crazy he's acting. And he informs him, hey, listen, you got a match with Trey Miguel later on in the card. Which I was like, okay, we saw this already, but let's see it again.
I thought that was hilarious. So Scott D'Amore actually fantastic on his backstage segments. May I just point that out?
He's great.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. So he, like you mentioned, he has EC3 on his mind. That's all he can think about. And I thought this segment was hilarious. And not only because poor Moose is so freaking just out of it with this whole EC3 and his title thing. But Scott D'Amore walks away and just says, yeah, you're Moose, say whatever you need to put yourself over. As he's walking away from the camera and we're starting to not hear him as much, he just starts going off about yeah, you're Moose, you're the best, you're the wrestling god, whatever you say to put yourself over. I thought that was hilarious. I forget exactly what he said, but
yeah, no, it was a good exchange.
And next we have my man, my exhibition champ, Rohit Raju. He's my champ, damn it. So when we talked last time, he's sending out an open challenge. What was it called?
The Defeat Rohit Challenge.
Defeat Rohit Challenge. That's it. And guess who comes out? None other than Chocolate Thunder, Willie Mack. Oh, yeah. I was excited for this one.
Once Willie's music hit, I was pretty excited for it. Because, both of these guys are really just great workers. I knew as soon as that music hit, we were getting a good match. And they did not disappoint, did they?
They did not disappoint. But you know what? I was actually kind of hoping to see Rohit get out of having to actually wrestle this match. His whole thing now is that he's going to be given out all these opportunities, right. Opportunities that were never handed to him. And I actually want him to just be still not give opportunities, but kind of getting away with it, which he is still kind of doing. But I was not expecting this match to go on as long as it did. It was actually this is one of my favorite matches. It was fantastic. We really got to see what Rohit Raju could do, and of course we all know that Willie Mack can go. The freaking right from the get go, Willie Mack does a Rana, which is a thing
Yeah,
of beauty. Um,
that was
but
the
of
move I
course,
wrote down. Yeah, that was. I mean,
oh
it
my
was super
god,
clean. From the floor. I mean, a man that size shouldn't be doing standing Hurricane Ranas. I mean, it just shouldn't happen.
it was amazing. But my champion also does this beautiful crossface
Hmm.
to Willie Mack. He's going all out to keep his title, and we have towards the end here they're trying to get the upper hand on one another, and it's a nail biter. It's actually pretty close. Once we get to the
Hmm.
end of the match, I actually had no idea who was going over. So they both looked very strong. It was very close. And then, of course, towards the end, we have an exchange where they kind of what happened? They were going to the corner buckle, and they hit each other's heads, so they were both kind of knocked loopy.
Yeah, so I think, the Rohit gets thrown into the corner and Willie does a follow-up, but he's too close and they bump heads. And then I got to be honest, I didn't like this finish very much. Where Rohit rolls to the outside after bumping heads, and then at about the count of eight realizes that he can just take the loss outside because then he keeps his championship. Um, I don't. I hate that champion's advantage rule. I think it's very dumb because if you have a heel champion, there's no reason why they should ever lose. They should just leave the ring. Um,
Every time, right?
every time. But they listen. That's their rules that they play within their rules, and Rahit kind of slime balls his way with the championship. So technically speaking, Willie Mack gets the win by count out, but does not get the championship.
I literally wrote down LOL. Rohit retains by count out. But I really loved it because his facial expression too. Like he went to the outside and he's like actually like, oh my god, my head, like that freaking hurt. And then yeah, like you said, it reaches the 8 count. He's about to get in, but the camera literally catches his face. Go, wait a minute, I could just stay down here. And then that's what he does. He comes back down. He closes his eyes, and then the ref counts to
Right.
10. He opens his like one eye, and it's like, am I good? Am I good? Let's go. So I
Yeah,
thought he did that great.
it was definitely some cornball shit at the end. He does the whole like,
Cornball. I
it
love
was
it.
corny. It was corny. I know you love Rohit. I love Rohit too, but it was very corny. Um,
I did.
you know, what are you gonna do? And this match actually goes 11-11, Make a Wish. But
Yep.
it was pretty good. Then we
I thought
get
it was
a
excellent.
uh, I will say this, and we'll have a couple of these backstage scenarios with both in Victory Road and also the week's episode of Impact, where Sammy Callahan and Ken Shamrock are in backstage interviews. Um, this isn't doing anything for me, Sandy.
Yeah, I have to agree. But I can see they're already building up to something here, you know. We have Sammy and Ken backstage, and the interviewer asks, hey, why did Ken attack Eddie Edwards? Right off the bat, we have Sammy, he's the one that's answering for Ken.
Right,
And, and I thought it was hilarious that he has the audacity to say, this has nothing to do with me. This is strictly Ken trying to make sure that he comes back here and he's
right.
known again to be the killer that he is. And it's like, okay,
They're
it's nothing about you.
the most
Why are you
dangerous
answering for
man
him?
in the world.
Yeah, so it's clear manipulation on Sammy's side to Ken, manipulating him to attack Eddie because they have a long history. And, it's there. We'll see how it goes. Of course, down the road, I'm sure we'll see Sammy and Ken for the fallout, but it'll take some time. Like you mentioned, it does nothing for you. It's really not doing too much for me either. Ken is, he's so old. I feel like he
He's
still
pretty
looks great
old.
for his age, but man.
Yeah, but he's pretty old. So they did say, I believe it was on Twitter. I did see that Ken Shamrock is going to be inducted into Impact's Hall of Fame. And he
Oh,
actually, I reached out to Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, on Twitter, asking if he would send a video for the ceremony, and Dwayne said yes.
Ooh.
So, it'll be interesting to see, kind of what Dwayne does here, if anything. I mean, seeing anything with Dwayne The Rock Johnson on Impact TV at any point would be something I would consider pretty exciting, just to see even, Dwayne entertain the idea of anything
Very
outside
interesting.
WWE. Especially given since all of
Ooh.
his cousins are still in WWE, and we'll see kind of
Ooh.
what happens there. But yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, nothing really interesting with Ken Shamrock yet. Like you said, he looks very old, very much his age, and does not listen. His fancy jorts are not doing it for me either. Um,
Poor
it
guy.
it doesn't look good. But speaking of looking good, the next match is the rubber match between Tennille Dashwood and Jordan Grace. Um, right off the bat, uh, I wrote down that Jordan's speed and power is just insane, right? Um, but before I get into that, I mean, what are your thoughts here on this match overall, Sandy?
I thought it was fantastic. So I do wanna mention this. The whole thing with Caleb with a K, Tennille Dashwood's personal photographer and assistant or whatever. He comes out with his douchey little Starbucks cup, and then he has his cell phone in the ring. I thought it was
Yeah,
hilarious. I wanna point this out that he's over here taking photos of Tennille as she is putting the beat down on Jordan Grace, and the camera the actual camera that's recording the pay per view gets an angle of the photos that he's been taking and the videos that he's been recording on a crappy, cracked, old, old Android device, and I thought that
yep.
was hilarious. I don't know why, but that made me laugh so hard.
It almost looked like a Galaxy S4, like that old, right? Like it looked
It was so old.
very old, and it looked cracked. I thought it was very funny. It kind of adds to the aesthetic. Caleb with a K as a whole is kind of wearing thin on me, um,
Uh-oh.
but I know it's not going anywhere. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think, at one point Tennille has, got Jordan in a headlock and she's posing for the gram, as they say, and she gives Jordan what I wrote down as the noogie of death, um, which I thought was just absolutely ridiculous, in the
That's
best way
silly.
possible. But yeah, no, I mean, everything Jordan Grace does looks like it just hurts really bad. When she does her corner splashes, her double
Oh
knees,
my
I mean,
god.
everything to the corner she does is insane. All of her slams look like they're just so much power between them. Um,
That's exactly what I wrote. I'm like, everything Jordan Grace does is just so absolutely believable. From her offense to her defense, from her selling to her registering. She's a freaking star.
she is, and I think too, unfortunately, when you see her wrestle with some of these other women, like a Tennille Dashwood, the the art of wrestling is all about, in a lot of ways, not all about, but in a lot of ways, is about the suspension of disbelief, right? And when you see someone like Jordan Grace just pummel the shit out of Tennille, and then Tennille somehow is able to fight on through it, it kind of it takes it away sometimes. I feel like Jordan just looks that much stronger and that much faster than most of the women in that locker room. And so, I'm kind of glad that this was the last, this was the rubber match to get past this, right? Be done with it. Um, so we can see what, Jordan does next. And we'll talk about that later. But I don't know. I'm happy it's done. I was surprised that Tennille picks up the win here after yet another distraction by Caleb with a K. So, it was a pretty good match. Comes in at 12 minutes, 17 seconds, according to Cage Match, which is one of your longer matches of the evening. But, I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was great too. Tennille did absolutely great heel work. And we're praising Jordan Grace because how could we not? She's just so great. But Tennille, she was just being the most despicable heel, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
looking at videos and pictures of her beating Grace. She did her job right. And of course, the story here makes sense that Jordan is much more powerful than Tennille, but maybe not more skilled at wrestling than Tennille, because we do know that Tennille has had, her WWE experience. We can't take that away from her. So when it comes to her getting the upper hand on Jordan, to me, it's a very believable story just because of her experience, her tenure, and her background, which everyone knows from her past work. So to me, it didn't really take it too much out of me. And then of course with the save from Caleb when he pulled Tennille from that bomb top rope splash from that Jordan was going to give to Tennille, it makes sense. She also has that backup to save her. But I was surprised that she did pick up the win, even if it was in her heel methods or not. I was really surprised. I really was expecting Jordan Grace to go over here, but it was a great match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I mean, and it makes sense now after watching Tuesday's episode why Jordan didn't win. We have some other things that we'll get to that were that are set up from Tuesday night. But Jordan had the run with the Knockouts Championship earlier in the year. She had her little feud with Deanna. Deanna came out on top. So it doesn't make sense to run Jordan right back up since we got some other things lined up. So I thought it was it did its job, and then of course in hindsight, you can always question booking decisions in the time that they happen, but the real judgment of them is in hindsight, and I get it now. Looking back on even just after one episode. So I have a question for you before we start talking about this next match, Sandy. Have you ever seen an unsanctioned match that had rules?
No, I don't think I have.
Because we get an unsanctioned match here between the Reno Scum, which of course is the team of Adam Thornstowe and Luster the Legend, and of course Rhino with the man who is not hired to Impact yet, Heath. And for some reason, this unsanctioned tag team match had followed regular rules, and I could not figure that out for the life of me.
You know what I was thinking? So I thought about that, but then in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe that means unsanctioned, as in like, all right, whoever wins or loses, they're not going to move up in the tag team division. They're not going to go on to get opportunities down the road. It's just like, hey, this is off the records, off the books, a pro wrestling match. But yeah, I thought it was funny too. I was like, wait a minute, this is like a regular tag match.
Right, exactly. But I will say this: Reno Scum, I think they don't get talked about as much because their gimmick is kind of weird, right? It's kind of out there. It's kind of punk rock. It's kind of not. It's kind of whatever it is, right? I think they're both pretty good workers. I think Adam Thornstowe did that standing moonsault that was incredible. Or was it a standing shooting star press? I think it was a standing shooting star. So, but I mean, just beautiful, right? I mean, I saw gifs of it all over Twitter the next day, and rightfully so. So, but we knew kind of going into this one where it was headed. We knew who was doing the yob, and of course, that would be Heath and Rhino going over Reno Scum here, with Heath getting his finisher in. It was an okay match for me. What did you think?
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love this match. It had explosive action from start to finish. Everything looked absolutely deadly. Like they were going in on everything, but everything was also executed perfectly. And they looked like they were having just so much fun with the back and forth. And it was, man, I thought it was a fantastic match. I was watching it just like grabbing my head, like blown away by everything that was don't know too much about Reno Scum except for when I started doing this podcast with you and watching Impact. But like you mentioned, they're solid workers. Maybe their look. Actually, you know what? I'm surprised that their gimmick isn't really captivating the audience because typically you have the whole like punk rock thing. Really is an easy thing to use to get over. We have someone like Ruby Riott. We have Alistair. I guess someone like Alistair Black isn't using that per se, but
yeah, he's more kind of that goth vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm surprised. Usually I don't know what it is, but they deserve a lot more credit. This match, I think, is one of the best matches that I've seen from them so far. But of course, we haven't seen much, but this was a lot of fun. And, right after I did note on here, I'm like, poor Heath. He was red as a tomato. Uh,
He was blown
he
up at
looked
the
so
end.
bad.
He was blown up.
Right? Oh my
He
God.
definitely he protected Rhino a little bit. Rhino I don't think had more than maybe 3 minutes of action in the match, um, which is obviously, I mean, after we've talked before that after the beatdown that Rhino has sustained over his life, we can't expect long matches out of him. This match goes 10 minutes 36 seconds, and like I said, I think Heath probably was involved in 8 minutes of it. So I
And
mean,
all
Heath
he took
Heath
the entire heat. Rhino came back for a hot tag, which lasted like 30 seconds, and
Yeah,
then he tagged back in for his to pick up the win. But poor dude, he was red as a tomato.
yeah. He
Holy
gave it his
cow!
all, though. He gave it his all. You got to
Oh yeah.
respect Heath for that. That is for sure. And then, of course,
And
we
then
see
of
the
course
backstage afterwards. Scott D'Amore approaches Heath and says, "Hey, man, that was pretty good. I like what I see here. Why don't you come back Tuesday? Use the front door. Don't have your buddies, open the back door. Don't try to sneak around. Come on, we'll have a talk about getting something on paper." So it looks like, Sandy, at this point, hashtag Heath for Impact has paid off.
the hope continues.
The
Woo!
hope continues. But you know what? Right after that, we go right into the next match. Why don't you take us through a little start breakdown of this one?
We have Moose, my new best friend, versus Trey Miguel. So okay, I noted on here Trey's entrance. Oh my God, everyone from the Rascals, they just have the absolute best ring presence, and they need to start paying me for saying all these praises because man, I am just obsessed. But
Why would they
like we
pay you?
saw,
You do it for free.
I should stop and then just be like, hey, pay me now because enough is enough. No, just kidding. Though, as long as they continue to impress me, I will sing their praises. But of course, Moose, he comes out. He is not in the mood. He, like we saw earlier, he didn't want to have this match at all. He has too much on his mind. He's not in the mood. EC3 is still out there playing mind games. And oh man, this was devastating. This whole match was just a brutal beating from Moose to Trey. Trey grabs him and says, "Where the hell is my title? Where is EC3?" Trey obviously doesn't know. But this tells a story that Madison and Josh reminds us as well, that Moose is just not focused on this match at all tonight. He is pissed. He is frustrated. He just wants to kill Trey Miguel to make EC3 feel bad, but this is all his fault. That's it. It was just a beating on poor Trey.
Yeah, Trey took a lot of a beating here, and
Oh my God.
Moose at one point, and this is you can attribute a lot of these things that we're catching on the microphones to there being no fans. Moose at one point yells to EC3. He yells at Trey Miguel. He goes, "Where's EC3?" And then he says to EC3, his family's going to have to start a GoFundMe. And then he just brutalizes Trey Miguel more. And I just thought that was a great line. A very,
It was fantastic.
very good line for 2020, as we do see. Unfortunately, a lot of people have to resort to GoFundMe for medical expenses. But I thought it was a pretty good line. And then, the turn of the match here happens when the EC3 logo comes up on the Tron.
That, of course, that to me, I mean, I guess in the storyline it makes sense. I just think it's so silly whenever, lights flicker or like music hits and then they're immediately
Right.
distracted and all hell breaks loose. But yeah, poor Moose was distraught and severely distracted by the Jumbotron as we see EC3 symbol, his little three, his number 3 thing. And it actually allows Trey to get the win on Moose, which again I was surprised. I just thought it was just gonna be a demolishing of Trey, but he does pick up the win. But I feel like it didn't even matter because Moose didn't even give a shit at all. He
Nuh-uh.
doesn't seem to care whatsoever. He immediately hits the back. He says, "Hey, I know where EC3. He's in the production truck," and that's where he heads to.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, he doesn't sell the loss at all. He could not give less of a shit.
No.
And like you said, it was kind of odd because it started off as something that was going to be an absolute beatdown, and it kind of dragged on a little long. It goes over 8 minutes. And you see, of course, he runs into the production truck. EC3 apparently has made everyone leave the production truck. And then the door locks on Moose, and then he plays a sound that, basically, like an earth-shattering sound to Moose's ears, which causes Moose to run outside. He sees the TNA World Heavyweight Championship on the ground, goes to pick it up, and then is jumped by EC3. And so that was that. It was kind of an interesting thing. It's always one of those really weird things with professional wrestling that you have storylines that have to be pushed by so much stuff outside of the ring. Um, I don't know. I'm ready for this match to happen. It is
Oh
probably
my gosh, me too.
it's going to happen at Bound for Glory. They're going to hold off on it obviously until then, and I think they announced on Twitter that it would happen at an undisclosed location. So it sounds like we're going to have some cinematic wrestling of some sort. Hopefully, it's just a wrestling match that they've pre-taped in some other warehouse. Um, but I don't feel like we might not get that, unfortunately.
Who knows? Who knows? I'm intrigued, but yeah, it's been the long game for this storyline here, and I just hope it really pays off in the end. Um, I'm just excited to see EC3 get back in there.
Yeah, me too, and that's why too. Like I'm so hopeful that it is, a situation where it's not a like boneyard match type thing, right? I don't want it to be something like that. I want it to actually have some wrestling. But we'll see what happens.
We shall see.
Impact has been good to us so far, Sandy. I'm going to trust them.
I think so too. I think they'll kill it.
So this next match is a preview of the tag team championship match that we'll see at Bound for Glory, which is a four-way match. So we have a representative from each of those teams in a four-way singles match here with Ace Austin, Carl Anderson, Alex Shelley, and Josh Alexander participating with their teammates on the outside. I thought this was a pretty damn fun match. Uh, lots of really good action, uh, tons of good spots. Carl Anderson still has one of the best spine busters I've ever seen. Um, I really liked it quite a bit.
Holy shit, Josh. I mean, I feel like I could spend an entire hour breaking down this match. I wrote so much for it, and it got to the point where I couldn't even take any more notes just because there was so much action happening. And man, we all know these guys can go. And of course they did. It was such a fun match. This match also had the advantage because they each had a tag member on the outside that were able to bring that energy by cheering them on, by talking shit, by giving that energy that we keep saying Impact is missing by not having anyone in the audience whatsoever.
Yeah,
So this one had the advantage when it came to that. And of course, it had the advantage of having these amazing wrestlers give it their all for this match. This match to me was all Alex Shelley.
yeah,
Alex Shelley was, if we're counting down the top star for this match, holy shit. He faced off against everyone. He's a pro. He's going to be a legend in wrestling. He already is that legend to me and to a lot of people. He executed everything perfectly. The one person that I didn't really get to see too much of, I feel, was Josh Alexander, which surprisingly enough, he actually does pick up the win by pinning
mhm,
Alex Shelley. I thought he was at least impressive in the match. We didn't get to see too much offense from him. It was all the other guys, especially Alex Shelley. So this was kind of interesting to me that he would pick up the win. But man, like you said, it was absolutely beautiful.
yeah. And it's a four-way match too that doesn't overstay its welcome, right? A lot of times when you see these
Mm.
multi-man matches, these triple threats, or all the way up to six-pack challenge, um, you know, you start to see, well, everyone has to get their stuff in, right? So it just creates this longer. And of course, there's the tag team partner on the outside. So the tag team partner on the outside, now each one of them has to do something too, right? And this one actually kind of
Mm-hmm.
had the benefit where they had the one ref bump where the ref, is out of it, and then all the tag team partners kind of descend on everything, and so that kind of wipes that all out at one point, at one fell swoop. so we don't have to get them all individually doing things. Under 15 minutes for a four-way match, with a lot of action, nonstop. It never, there was no rest holds. There was no, I mean, this thing just kept cooking. And like you said, I mean, great match. Josh Alexander didn't get his offense in, so it'll be interesting to see how this tag match looks at Bound for Glory. But this might have been my match of the night. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
I agree. This was a nearly flawless match. Everything was just executed perfectly. Holy shit. I want to, just for shits and giggles, just for fun, I want to go back and watch this match and just completely be fascinated again over Alex Shelley. And I did notice on here too, I know, just like you said, freaking Carl Anderson's spine buster is so beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I noted that on here as well.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and throw out my hashtag Chef's Kiss of the Night to Carl Anderson's spine buster, because if you want to learn how to do a spine buster, kids, watch Carl Anderson videos right along with your Arn Anderson videos. You'll find out how real quick.
For real.
All right, so we come to our semi-main event of Victory Road, the Knockouts Championship match between the defending Deonna Purrazzo, the virtuosa, I should say, Deonna Purrazzo, accompanied to the ring by, of course, her lackey, Kimber Lee. And then she's challenged here by Susie, who is accompanied to the ring by Kylie Rae. This one went slow at the beginning, picks up quite a bit at the end, and overall, I think we get a pretty good match out of here.
I agree. So I really wasn't expecting, I wouldn't say that I wasn't expecting too much out of it, but just, we have the whole story with Susie, and right off the bat, Deonna kind of makes that story clear. She goes in there, she's looking at Susie. Susie's just saying hi, and then Deonna's just saying, "Is this a joke? Like, what is this? Why? This isn't even serious."
Right.
So that's how I thought the match was exactly going to go. I thought it was going to be an easy squash for Deonna, and then we'll just see kind of the storyline of maybe Susie being pissed and then eventually becoming her Su Yung self. But that was not the case at all. This match actually went on. What did you say the time was on this one?
This one is 13 minutes flat.
13. Okay, that's a pretty good time. So we have Susie doing great character work here. Like you mentioned, the beginning was very slow. It was like she wasn't even trying to wrestle. Just kind of doing like a little poker face, like, "Hey, Deonna's better. I'm just here, kind of out of, I don't know, she's a doll, right? She's kind of out of it."
Right.
But towards the end, she wakes up and towards the end it really picked up a lot. So we had to go through the very slow beginning. Deonna was just initially working the arm of Susie with a variation of some mean-looking arm ringers and arm attacks. Of course, preparing for her setup, which is her finisher, the Fujiwara arm bar. And what does she call it? The double Fujiwara.
The double one she calls the Venus de Milo.
Venus de Milo. So, of course, I love that storytelling. Deonna is an expert at working that arm for her finish. We all know she's one of the greatest technical wrestlers, not even just for women's wrestling, but in general.
Yeah, in general. Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, after the match, we get an incredible display of post-match beatdown. And I'll be honest, the whole time, because they've been selling this whole Su Yung emergence, I thought that in the middle of this bloodbath that Deonna puts through Susie here, I thought we were going to have Su Yung awaken. It didn't happen, but what we did see is Kylie tries to save Susie. Kimberly puts her in a headlock, holds her back, and then jerks her head up to make her watch as Deonna Purrazzo is extremely brutal with the arm bar to Susie. And I'll be honest, I was pretty impressed with Susie's flexibility there, because any normal person's arm probably would have snapped clean out of socket there. It was a pretty gruesome display at the end as far as post-match beatdowns go. A lot of times, they're kind of goofy. They do the stomping a lot in the corner, and then, maybe a hit with a chair, and then that's your post-match beatdown. But to force someone to watch their best friend get their arm broken, man, that was kind of some brutality I wasn't expecting there, Sandy.
brutal and gruesome is an understatement. Holy shit. It was it was rough. And even throughout the match, so we see Gianna, of course, retaining and going over by doing the double Fujiwara armbar on Susie. So right off the bat, she's already freaking hurting. And not only that, but when Kimberly interferes in the match, she gives Susie a kick to the head on the outside, on the apron. That was so brutal.
Yeah.
I didn't even think it was necessary because Diana, towards the end, we were kind of seeing Susie get the upper hand and possibly pulling off a miracle and going over. But, Kimberly was there and almost kicked her damn head off. We did get to see a little bit of a glimpse of Susie twitching, maybe morphing back into Su Yung. She did a couple of maneuvers that are synonymous with Su Yung.
Yeah.
That's her moveset. I don't know exactly what they're called, but they're the ones from the buckle. What does she do? Do you know what they're called?
I don't know what their exact names are, and I apologize for that. But yeah, where she kind of grabs the ropes and then walks up the turnbuckle and goes inverted to grab the to do like the head scissor type stuff and kind of do some other kind of gruesome looking stuff. I'm excited for whenever this full Su Yung retransformation happens, because I think we're going to get obviously a Kylie Ray Su Yung match at some point, and I think it's going to be awesome. That's my prediction. But yeah, this match delivered on everything that I felt like it was going to. Felt like we had a pretty good idea who was going to win it going in, but the post match is really what pushes this along, and really makes the Knockouts Championship match between Deonna and Kylie that much more personal. And we kind of see Kylie, the effects of what happens here to Kylie on Tuesday's show as well. And we'll talk to that when we get there. We do need to spend a decent bit of time here on the main event of Victory Road. We kind of get told ahead of time, because of the post show beatdown that Eddie Edwards gets prior to Victory Road. Well, maybe he's not 100%. I didn't think he sold anything from what Ken Shamrock did to him in this match. So it was definitely Eddie Edwards, 100%. I don't know when they shot these matches. I don't think that Victory Road was live. I didn't get that vibe. I felt like it was pre-taped. But I don't know how their shooting schedules work and how they're doing things. But Eddie, Eddie comes out, looks 100%. And Eric Young, of course, comes out looking crazy, and right off the bat looked even crazier because I didn't catch what happened, but all of a sudden Eric Young has a gash on his face and he's bleeding profusely from under the eye. So I don't believe it's any kind of blade job. I think he just got caught on something. But this thing gets going pretty quick here right off the gates. What are your thoughts here, Sandy, on this one?
This match was crazy, brutal. So I don't know if it was just like me, like fatigued from watching this pay-per-view, which, I don't understand why I would be fatigued because it was only like 3 hours when we're used to, the whole 7-hour WrestleMania from WWE.
Right.
But I think towards the end I was like, all right, let's do this. And the match, to me, it felt a little long, but it made sense just because it was such a grudge type of match. It was for the championship. We have this storyline between Eddie Edwards and Eric Young that has been going on for quite a bit since Eric Young made his debut again back in Impact. Like you were mentioning, I have no idea how Eric Young got that cut under his eye, but the visual of it looked brutal because it looked like it was
great.
bleeding directly from his eyeball, which wasn't the case. He had a nick like right under it, but it looked brutal. Not sure how it happened. Could it have been for the kick? Because there was no lockup. Immediately, Eddie kicks EY and sends him to the outside and just starts beating the crap out of him. So somewhere between that and 10 seconds later, when they're battling on the ramp, he's already bleeding. So, which the blood from the start being that it was a legit injury.
Yeah.
It added so much to the story, I feel, because this is personal. This isn't just a match for the championship. This is personal,
right.
And it didn't even matter to me. Like, it felt like it didn't even matter that this is for the championship. This is just about Eddie Edwards getting retribution on Eric Young for putting his hands on his wife for hurting Rich Swann for the torture over the last few weeks. So this was just brutal from the get-go, and that blood added even more to it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of subtle counters, very brutal offense. There was a really interesting when Eddie Edwards goes for the Blue Thunder Bomb, and he kind of twists Eric
That
Young
was
into like a
weird.
face bump, and I've never seen that, and I don't know if there was a botch involved. I don't know if they were trying to do that, but that was like one move I was like, huh, what happened? Right? Like
I've never seen that happen.
it didn't compute, right? I was like, can you really
No.
call that a Blue Thunder Bomb? It's kind of, I mean, it was a weird kind of move, but it definitely Eddie acted like it wasn't on purpose and went and get right into another one, which was a traditional Blue Thunder Bomb. Um, but yeah, both, I mean, super great. We get to the finish, but from a pile driver, of course. But instead of going for the pin, he goes right after Eddie's knee again to try and end his career. He taps out, and then Eric Young retains. Eric Young starts to lose his mind again, starts attacking Eddie Edwards, and he gets saved by the run-in by Rich Swann, who hits his kind of spinning kick, kind of a Trouble in Paradise type move. Um, and they're setting that up pretty good for Bound for Glory there. It does look like at this point, at least, it will be a one-on-one match. They've not decided to add Eddie Edwards in or anything like that yet.
I hope they don't.
I hope they don't too. If this was WWE, it would be all but guaranteed to be a triple threat match. Um, but hopefully it's maybe we get Rich Swann out there and Eddie Edwards is in his corner. Maybe something along those lines I'd be okay with. But I'm with you there. I hope to God that we don't get a triple threat here because I just think the emotion of the match and everything that they've been driving towards, this needs to be two dudes in the ring hitting hits and throwing throws, and we'll see how it goes. But that's Victory Road. They did announce that they're going to could start doing these monthly specials again on Impact Plus. Looks like they're trying to drive more subscriptions their way. So we'll have another special one in November and another special event in December, which I think is pretty good. It'll feel, I think, less intrusive on the rest of the product in these other months where they don't have that quarterly pay-per-view that they're running. It's obviously October has become busy because of it, but I'm looking forward to these kind of monthly specials here, Sandy. How about yourself?
I am too, and I think this is a great way to get eyes on the product. If they're not getting as many viewers to watch their weekly shows, the weekly shows can be little setups, more backstage segments, and these monthly shows can be great to really tie things together, prolong storylines, and get more viewers on the product, which I think will be nothing but positive for Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, and it's funny because we hear about ratings talk a lot when we're talking about WWE versus AEW, right? Impact doesn't get talked a lot about it. Obviously, they're on Access, not a channel everyone has. But someone was able to dig up, and I think it was the Observer. Impact's doing kind of on average about 150, 160,000 views weekly, which for the number three, maybe some people would put ROH over them. But as far as the number three most popular wrestling promotion in North America on a channel that everyone doesn't have, I think 150 to 160,000 people is pretty good.
Agreed.
And that doesn't include people like us that watch after the fact, right? And not necessarily always on the way that we should. But it is what it is. Big ups to them. Really good monthly thing, and hopefully they can drive some subscriptions to Impact Plus with these monthly shows starting back up. But we'll take a quick breath here, and quite literally, because we have the Impact Wrestling episode from October 6th to talk about here. Anything else you want to add before we jump in here, Sandy?
I want to tell you guys that you should definitely sign up for Impact Plus on Fight TV and catch this pay-per-view. I really think you guys will love it. Hopefully our breakdown of it will really inspire you guys to say, hey, I should check that match out. Impact, they're really hardworking. Everyone in that roster is really giving it all they got to put out great products, and I think it's a shame that they don't have a lot more viewers on their products. So if you are listening, go check them out.
Yeah, I'll agree 100% with that, and it's only like 7.99 for Impact Plus. So you know, definitely do it, and doing it through Fight TV helps too. If you have an ROH membership or if you subscribe to other wrestling promotions on there, you can view it all right there from the Fight TV app. And we should push for them to give us some sponsorship money since we've dropped Fight TV like 6 times now. But hey,
You're right.
I mean, I guess we're not going to mention that. We're going to say like Schmite Shmee V, so that they don't think that they're getting any more free press from us. But anywho, so we actually get a match teased on Victory Road that we didn't talk about. That is the opener here for the October 6th episode of Impact Wrestling. And that is the follow-up to the Brian Myers and Tommy Dreamer match. So post-match at Victory Road, Brian pretty much says, hey, man, you're old, you're washed up. I was expecting to get the Innovator of Violence, and this old, out-of-shape guy showed up. And so Tommy's like, okay, you know what? I'll show you the Innovator of Violence. Show up Tuesday. And so I'm like, are we going straight to a no DQ, like old school rules match? The answer is no. We don't. We go right to another regular rules match with Tommy Dreamer, 2 in a row. I sent him a message about it. He has not replied. I don't know why. But
Damn it, Tom.
I know, right? Come on, Tommy. But we see, it was a pretty decent match. Pretty short one here. Well, actually, it's a little bit longer than the other one, but I think that's because of the post-match stuff. Tommy Dreamer gets the win because Brian Myers steals a play from Tommy's playbook and goes and gets a kendo stick and starts hitting him pretty hard with it. And I don't think we're done with this feud here, Sandy.
I don't think we are at all. But I will have to say, so I don't know about you, I am not a big fan, and I don't know who would be, of the immediate rematches after a pay-per-view. Like, we just saw this match.
Yeah.
Give me a break, please.
Yeah.
So I right off the bat, I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to see pretty much all the same matches from the pay-per-views. I was not happy about that, but like you mentioned, looks like this is going to continue. Maybe we'll get that super hardcore, no rules, the Innovator of Violence, Tommy Dreamer at Bound for Glory. Could it be? Maybe.
It definitely feels that way.
Yeah, but the tensions are definitely high. Yep, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it, at this time. And it wasn't the only rematch from Victory Road that we saw. We'll get to that one in a little bit. But transitioning here, it's nice to get back into our weekly episodes of Impact Wrestling after talking about a pay-per-view, which I guess calling it a pay-per-view is probably not. It's like a network special, I guess. It's kind of probably that because we didn't pay anything extra for it. But after the special show, we'll call it, in Victory Road, where there's not as many backstage segments, we get to see another episode of the Moose Chronicles, which nothing really happened in this one. It's kind of a little bit more of the same, and then we go kind of right from there into we call kind of the leftovers of Wrestle House, who they haven't decided to put into another storyline yet. But we see the bridal party backstage arguing. Not really a whole lot that I had to say about this, but I don't know. What do you think? Anything from the Moose Chronicles or from our bridal party here that you want to talk about, Sandy?
All right, the Moose Chronicles. Was this one supposed to be like comedy? Because he is looking everywhere, I guess maybe for the title or EC3, but he's literally looking under like a yoga mat, under a motorcycle. I was laughing my ass off. I was like, brother, what are you doing?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that cracks me up.
It is a little slapsticky. You're right. It is, it's there. Yeah, the yoga
under
mat.
Like a cushion.
Now, for the listeners, when she says yoga mat, she doesn't mean like stacks of yoga mats that he like kind of looks underneath the stack. She means like a rolled out yoga mat that's flat on the ground that he lifts up the corner of, right? I mean, it's
what are we looking for, Moose? What? You've lost your mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're not fitting a championship belt or EC3 underneath a yoga mat. Um,
Nope.
but if you wanted to go, and now if you didn't want this to be a serious thing and go full slapstick, where they could have done, if I'm directing this as a comedy, is he looks under one yoga mat, lifts the corner of it, and nobody's there. But in the background, you see a second yoga mat that's just draped over EC3, like hiding underneath it. That would have been if I'm doing a true slapstick scene, that would have been kind of like, oh, he looked under the wrong yoga mat, right? Just kind of slap, but yeah, it is very slapstick heavy.
So funny. Oh, Josh, can I tell you that I got the pleasure of chopping moose this week?
You did not tell me that part. Now, I alluded to the fact that you know Moose now, and obviously it's because you trained with him this week. But you did not tell me that you chopped him. How badly did your hand hurt after?
It was terrifying. No, it wasn't even because of my hand. He was wearing like a sweatshirt or something.
Oh,
But
okay.
I was like, so he's like chop me, and I was like, oh God, why me? So I chop him. I was like, well, am I supposed to chop you, like chop you, or kind of just like make it look like it? So I didn't go 100%. I went like 85% because I was like, man, if I chop this man too hard and he's like, what the hell, I would have died. But I did it, and I immediately looked behind me to like the rest of my teammates, the students at the school, and I made this face like, oh, I just chopped Moose. I was like so scared. He's a terrifying man, but he's a freaking sweetheart. So yeah, I got to train him with this week, so that was amazing. He's a very knowledgeable guy, and I'm very grateful for that experience. So yeah, so we're like this now.
Yeah, right. Now I gotta say, I gotta ask, like, is he as physically intimidating in person as he looks like on TV?
Oh my God, yeah. He is just 100% muscle. And, he comes in the ring. He has this swagger about him. He comes in with his hat. The presence, everything that you see pretty much on TV is what you see from him in person. And man, yeah, I was terrified looking at him and working with him, but at the same time, he was very helpful. He was a complete sweetheart, really wanted us to succeed and wanted to make sure that we learned the most from what he was teaching us. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great. It's always good to hear, um, especially because we hear all the old stories of like the old school wrestlers, right? Back in like the 70s, they were making towns and you had to earn your this or earn your that. And then everyone was a dick to everyone else and there was razzing and all this stuff. It's always good to hear that in 2020, people don't still have that mindset and that they actually do want to teach the next generation of wrestlers and the next people that are dying to learn and really love the industry. So, that's a great story, and thank you for sharing that. Obviously,
Okay. Oh
um,
yeah, I've gotten nothing but good experiences from the people that I've met in the industry, and I feel like being a student of Jay Lethal, I feel like I haven't put over the school as much as I should. And if you're listening, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, if you've ever wanted to look at pro wrestling as a career or to fulfill your dream, your childhood dream, go for it. And there's no better place than learning from the man himself, Jay Lethal. He gives it his all. He's the most respectful coach. He is the sweetest man I've ever met. He really cares about his students. And it doesn't matter from what walks of life you come from, your age, your gender, nothing. Like he's going to give it his all when it comes to teaching you. And this week was just very special because, he had Moose come to the school. We worked with Josh Woods as well. And I'm very grateful. I also got to meet and hear critique from Gail Kim, which, as everyone who is listening probably knows, that she is, an Impact Knockouts division legend in wrestling,
absolutely,
and
yeah,
we got to learn a lot from her as well.
yep. And you also hear her now at the front of our show because you did. You did. I was kind of joking with Sandy. She was like, "Oh man, I'm training with Gail Kim today," and I'm like, I was just kind of joking, like, "Oh man, you should get a podcast drop from her." And like an hour later, Sandy texts me. He's like, "I got it." I'm like, "What?" I didn't. I was just joking. Like, I turned to my wife and I
I
was
didn't
like,
know you were joking,
I
Josh.
didn't. Well, I didn't. I listen. I know doing things, asking favors and things like that can sometimes be awkward. So I was just kind of just
Yeah.
I probably personally would have done the same. Like I probably would have asked for it if I was in your shoes. But that's because I have no shame. but that's what happens. Like when you have kids, like you don't have shame anymore. It's impossible to because you've had shit on your hands, right? So
Oh,
yeah, listen, it's the truth, right? It happens. Um, but
like,
yeah, I turned to Colleen and I was like, okay, so Sandy just got a podcast drop from Gail Kim Irvine, and she goes, Irvine? You mean like Robert Irvine? I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not why it's important that we got like, and Colleen didn't put two and two together, like that she's married to
oh, that's
Robert
funny.
Irvine. So I was like, I had to be like later on, I was like you realize like you know who she is because you literally said his name, but she just doesn't. My wife does not watch wrestling, and furthermore would not know the historical, the legends of Impact Wrestling, of TNA Wrestling. And of course, Gail Kim, definitely with that Impact Plus membership that you should get, go back and find Gail Kim matches to watch because she was really working her ass off at a time that we were coming outside of the Attitude Era, the Divas, the this, the that. I and she and Madison Rain and some of the others really put on some really good matches in the knockout division. So super cool. I'm sure for you to have been able to work with her.
Oh, it was an amazing experience. She was such a sweetheart, and you know, Josh, damn it, I didn't know you were joking about asking for the freaking podcast thing, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think about that with Moose? But as soon as I asked her, no hesitation, she's like, of course. And we went outside the school, and she did it in one freaking take because she's a pro.
Oh,
And
yeah. I mean,
no,
when you sent it to me, I was like, okay, yeah. This is like like she like I could tell it was like not like anything that she rehearsed. This nothing. She's just like, okay, what's the name of the podcast? Got it. And then just poof, like she just hit it right
yeah,
on the nose. Um, but yeah, like I said, that drop is now at the front of our show, which is really cool. Our very first specific to the 8-Bit Suplex podcast drop, and it's all because you took me very seriously, which I would think at this point, Sandy, as long as we've been doing this, as long as we know me, uh, you probably should take everything I say with a grain of salt and just question whether or not I'm being serious
now
because
I
you
know.
know. Oh well,
I could have
listen.
gotten heat. What if it was like against the rules to ask her for that? I'm like, oh man, it would have been Josh's fault and
I
gotten
would,
heat with Gail
yeah, no,
Kim. Could
I
you
would have,
imagine?
if you would have gotten heat, I would have felt really bad, and I would have driven down to the school to apologize, um, and not just because I wanted to talk to Jay. But anyways,
Yeah.
moving on, I'm going to assume since we had a nice little segue there, we're killing time because we didn't want to talk about anything that has to do with this bridal party scene, right?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay, so moving right along. Fresh off of his win on Victory Road, we get another edition of the Defeat Rohit challenge. I think
My man.
Rohit he cuts an excellent promo at the front end of this Defeat Rohit challenge, and then out of the blue, because we kind of understand the rules are once you get your shot at the champ, your challenge, you don't get it again. But imagine my surprise when the music for Chocolate Thunder himself, Willie Mack, hits again.
Dude, I was upset. I was like, really?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping to see who we'd get. Um, and I had kind of been half spoiled on Twitter around some of what happened next, but I didn't keep reading. I didn't understand the context. I thought something else happened with the person that does answer the challenge. But of course, Rohit takes the mic, tells Willie, hey man, you had your shot. You don't get another one. So get out of the ring and let's see who comes out next. And then imagine my surprise again when the music hits is none other than Jordan Grace.
Yo, I popped.
I did too. I was really excited about it. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome because Rahit's not the tallest guy. And obviously, we've talked before on the show that Jordan is not a super tall woman. Um, so I felt like she could really go one-on-one with him pretty well. I was pretty hyped for it. Rohit looks like he looks like he's seen a ghost. He's like, I'm not wrestling Jordan Grace. And it wasn't I'm not wrestling a girl kind of thing. It was like, oh, fuck, I'm
He's
terrified of her.
terrified.
And listen, me
As
too,
he should be.
Rohit. Me too. I'm terrified of Jordan Grace. I'm not afraid to say it. But, we see, little bit back and forth. He's kind of distracted by Willie. Willie's saying, "Hey, man, wrestle her." And bell rings. Jordan Grace gets a quick roll up because Rohit is distracted. She wins. Willie puts the belt on her. Everyone's thinking, "Oh man, this is great." And then
Yo.
your boy Rohit says, "This wasn't for the X Division Championship. I never said that's what it was for. This was just an open challenge. Great match, Jordan. You won." And then he goes to the back, and the look of shock and just disgust on both Willie and Jordan's faces was just priceless.
As much as I love Rohit, my man, Rohit Raju, and I never want him to drop that title, I just didn't think it was possible that they could come up with an opponent that would make me just absolutely be like, all right, drop the title, my man. Your time is over. And they did by getting Jordan Grace to come out. I freaking hopped out of my freaking couch. I was like, yes, baby. I was like, sorry, Willie, I love you, but this is so much better. And imagine my disappointment when, of course, she gets the roll up and it's not for the damn title. Like, part of it, I was so torn because I'm like, my man, Rohit Raju out here doing the damn thing. He never said it was for the title. He's so smart, my champion. Yeah. But then I'm like, damn it, man. I would have loved to see Jordan Grace get the win here. But, they go backstage, or no, Rohit Raju goes backstage and he's met by Scott D'Amore. He is congratulating him on his tactics, actually, saying, hey, you're a giving champ. You're giving all these opportunities out. But it's kind of like
very sarcastic,
very sarcastic. Yeah, like, yeah, you're doing great, man. You're offering all these things. Guess what? Because you're so giving, at Bountiful Glory, we will have a 6-way scramble for the X Division title, which left Raju looking like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, and so
who are we going to have?
It's going to be Chris Bay, TJP, Trey Miguel. Was it Trey Miguel? Yeah, Trey Miguel.
Yes.
Willie Mack. Jordan Grace. And Rohit Raju. Now, I just a brief pause here because this is a wrestling promotion that obviously has no problem with women holding championships that are not the Knockouts Division Championship. Tessa Blanchard, of course, was their heavyweight champion for a time before things went south with her. But they obviously they're injecting Jordan Grace here, and I think it is a perfect place to put her. I there's a lot of mixed feelings about intergender wrestling, right, as a whole. There are times that I think it makes sense. There are times that I think, okay, these are two competitors that look like they can go toe-to-toe. It looks like a really good match, right? I mean, Candice LeRae, of course, historically has done a ton of it. Lou Fisto is someone that you hear about a lot on the indies that's done a ton of it. There's a lot of big names that are against it. Cody Rhodes has come out and said that he's not a fan of it. He doesn't want it in AEW. Lance Storm has been against it in most cases, drawn a lot of backlash there. And so I just want to ask you, Sandy, kind of what your thoughts as a female wrestler, what your thoughts are regarding intergender wrestling. Do you want to see it in major promotions? Do you want to see it on the indies? What are kind of your thoughts there?
I would love to see it in major promotions. I think it can work very well. One of the bigger ones that made me absolutely love intergender wrestling recently was Chris Statlander. Her stuff in what was the promotion up north where she came out of? Man, she can put up a match with just about any man, woman, you name it.
Alien, even.
Yeah,
so she is from outer space. Yeah.
And her stuff, I feel it's hard for me to say it has to make sense because it's pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is an art. It is so subjective. It can mean whatever the hell you want it to mean. We have comedy wrestling. I feel like one of the biggest gimmicks in wrestling is tag team wrestling. You if you think about the rules in tag team wrestling, it's the most gimmicky thing, I guess, in pro wrestling, even more so than women's wrestling, even more so to me than intergender wrestling. So I understand the point of it having to make sense, possibly in the size between the two competitors. But that's a story that's something that you can say too when it comes to like we saw Triple XL and the Rascals. You know, the size
Right.
difference, the strength difference, but we still see the Rascals go over on Triple XL, and that, you know, the size difference there didn't matter. You can say the same thing with intergender wrestling. If you have a stronger, bigger man against a female competitor, hey, it's not all about strength. It's not all about size. There's speed. You know, if we think back into the very first UFC days, there was no weight limitation.
Right.
You know, there was no cap. Anyone can go with anyone, and it has to do more with skill. So
Yeah.
it's just a slippery slope, you know. Part of me does want to say, okay, let's make it look realistic. Let's make it have it make sense. But at the same time, fuck it. Like, it doesn't have to.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I bring, so when Dan and I were discussing the episode of Impact that he covered with me, uh, there's the kind of the end of the Sami Callihan Rob Van Dam feud, and the end of the match, the stipulation was that if Rob Van Dam won, Katie Forbes got 5 minutes in the ring alone to beat up Sami Callihan, was basically the premise of it. And of course, I had the fear that it was just going to turn into Sami Callihan beating up Katie Forbes, and that's exactly what it turned into. And the last thing we see of Katie Forbes, of course, on Impact TV, because Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes did not have their contracts renewed after that feud ended, was Katie Forbes eating a pile driver without really protecting herself at all, and then he just kind of tosses her like a limp body away, right? So it's always difficult because we do live in a world where there is so much domestic violence. There's a lot of violence between of men against women, and so I think, like you said, how you present it matters. In my opinion, and I'm just a white guy on the internet, making a podcast. But I think that if you can do it in a way that it presents it as a competition, like other wrestling matches, and it's not a violent beatdown like Sammy give Katie, but it's you can go back on YouTube and watch Candice LeRae and Adam Cole and PWG have incredible matches, and it doesn't look like it's a domestic violence kind of thing, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it and just kind of, because I know everyone's kind of different on that and everyone has a different opinion. Um, and I want to say, like Kylie Ray just had a match on the Independence against, I think it was Alex Shelley, that I want to go back and find the tape of it and watch that because I imagine that's very good. So but that to me is, it's two people similar stature. Um, I don't know. I think it's a case by case basis. Just like you don't necessarily want to watch the Undertaker wrestle Rey Mysterio either. But
Yeah.
yeah, but here,
It's interesting.
here with Jordan Grace, I feel like it's an equal footing thing. I don't feel like she's
Oh, yeah.
someone that's going to just absolutely get picked on because obviously she is strong, she is very fast. So I think she's going to be doing some of the agility stuff with with Chris Bay, with TJP, with Trey Miguel, but I think she's going to do some power moves too with Willie Mack and Rahit Raju. So this match at Bound for Glory, the 6-way scramble for the X Division Championship, that kind of became my number one match I'm most excited to see, Sandy, if I'm being completely honest.
Hell yeah, it could be a banger. We'll see. We'll see how it actually plays out. But yeah, I think it's one to look out for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But we're getting closer. October 24th is not as far away as it was last week, so we're inching ever closer to Bound for Glory. I think it is 2 weeks from tomorrow. We're recording this on October 9th, so 2 weeks from October 10th. So 2 Saturdays, and we're there. But after that little fiasco of the Defeat Rahit challenge, we do see Falaba had said that he was going to go find money to help Johnny Bravo pay for the wedding. And of course, we all know about Hernandez's money from arm wrestling. So there's a whole bunch of nonsense kind of set up here. I don't have anything I want to touch on. Anything you want to touch on with Falaba challenging Hernandez to an arm wrestling match?
Nope. But then So that happened earlier, and then we see a short clip of Hernandez in the shower and what am I saying that
Well,
right?
that happens a little bit later. That he goes and steals it. We can talk about it now. It doesn't matter when we talk about it because it's absolutely doesn't matter. But yeah,
Oh, that's right.
he spills coffee on Hernandez or something, and it prompts Hernandez to go shower. I've spilled coffee on myself a lot, Sandy. I've never felt the need to go to go immediately shower after. Um, but hey, I mean, everyone's a little different, I guess. So, but it's just it doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Nope. But we'll see where it goes. He steals the money.
Yeah,
Or is he winning?
if I don't think we're going to see Hernandez in a ring. He seems to send Reno Scum after whomever. So maybe we'll
That's
see
right.
Falaba and Johnny Springer have to fight Reno Scum because Reno Scum's trying to get Hernandez's money back. I don't know. I don't think it leads to much before Bound for Glory. We might see the payoff or lack thereof at Bound for Glory because there are some other matches obviously they're going to throw in there that are not title matches. We talked about Brian Myers and Tommy Dreamer's probably going to be one. EC3 and Moose is kind of a title match with Moose's self-proclaimed TNA World Heavyweight Championship belt, but it's not because that's not an officially recognized belt by Impact. So we'll see what happens there. Anywho, um, our other rematch of Victory Road happens here. Triple XL versus the Rascals again.
Yeah, so Victory Road rematch. We have Triple XL immediately attack Dez and Wentz even before they can even take off their jackets.
Yeah.
They send Wentz to the outside and they isolate Dez before they could even take off their jackets. And to be honest, like I mentioned earlier, actually, I'm not a big fan of those rematches directly after a pay-per-view or a big show. So far, this would be 2 out of 3 on tonight's episode, but we do see the Rascals defeat Triple XL once more after AC Romero catches Big Larry D with a mean forearm and Wentz super kicks AC Romero outside of the ring. They do their finishing maneuver, which I don't know if you recall the name, but it's that they freaking flip over Wentz and he pushes him over to the person on the ground. What is that called? What do they call it?
It's some
It's
pun
so
about
innovative.
it's some pun about marijuana.
Of course.
Because it has to be. I'll tell you in just a moment if you want to just keep vamping here a little bit.
Sure.
But
Yeah, for this match,
it was pretty good. I really liked the the opening spot that you talked about, where before they even got their jackets off, um, they did kind of like a torture rack where AC and Larry were literally like pulling at opposite ends of Dez,
oh yeah, I
and
forgot
then
about
and then they took that and they just lifted it up straight into a giant power bomb. Like it was pretty interesting. I don't know that I've seen that before, but again, we're seeing these moves out of Triple XL towards the Rascals because there is a giant size discrepancy um, between the two teams. Um, Triple XL, I thought it was interesting. They don't pick up the win um, either match. We'll see kind of what they do there. It just didn't, and I don't know. It just didn't feel like anything of consequence. Um, the Rascals are not involved in the tag match at Bound for Glory, at least not yet. So the finishing move is called Hot Fire Flame. Like I said, it's something to do with smoking marijuana, of course. But yeah, I mean, it is. It's an interesting thing to just keep running these tag matches that don't. I mean, you got 4 other tag teams that are involved in stuff. It's interesting to kind of see where they kind of stack things in with these filler matches. Um, but it was an interesting match. And then of course, immediately following this match, we have the Falaba taking the cash from Hernandez while he's showering that we touched on. And then we get another shot, another video package of Jimmy Jacobs now with Rich Swann's doctor, talking about the progress. He's 100% ready to go. Right,
doctor.
right. That doctor is Man, they had another week, Sandy, to find another doctor that could actually sell a scene.
This doctor cracks me up.
He is so bad. But he's got like what, a line and a half and he can't get it out. I don't know why.
No.
He must be like a camera operator or someone they have that's like, you know, coronavirus cleared that's just around. I guess. I don't know. I don't know, Sandy.
This poor man.
But we see, someone is working out in scrubs behind him. We see Rich Swann doing his little exercises. And then out of nowhere, the person in scrubs is revealed to be Eric Young, who then brutally attacks Rich Swann and does something to his ankle off camera after picking up a big plate. For those that are not, weightlifters, a plate would be a 45-pound weight that you would put on the end of a barbell. And it sounded pretty gruesome. We'll see what happens here. But hopefully it doesn't put into jeopardy Rich Swann for Bound for Glory.
God, I hope not. But, one thing he made clear, EY looks at him and just tells Rich to stay out of his way. And
Yeah.
that was a beatdown.
It was an absolute beatdown. Like I said, it sounded gross. I did not like the way that sounded at all when he did the plate on the ankle.
Mm-hmm.
But man, oof. That's all I got to say about that. Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
Like, ooh.
yeah. So we go from that to a backstage interview with Motor City Machine Guns where they kind of like, hey man, that was kind of brutal. But anywho, we'll talk about our own business, right? And so, I don't really have anything of note to talk about with this backstage here. What about you?
Nope. The Good Brothers just out boasting that they're undefeated, and of course they warned that they'll take the titles from the Motor City Machine Guns at Bound for Glory. I think it was Doc Gallows who made it very clear. So we want to make sure that we take it from you guys. So it's getting heated. This has been playing for a very long time, and I'm very excited to see the payout at Bound for Glory.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I said on this podcast, I'm not exactly super excited about the Good Brothers. That wasn't like the big signing that I thought it was going to be, that everyone's like, oh, wow, they went to Impact. This is going to be great for Impact. I'm like, is it really though? But actually, I've been really impressed with the effort that they've been putting forth because, I think a lot of times we expect these veteran guys that go to, I don't want to say lesser promotions, but they were in WWE, they were in New Japan Pro Wrestling, they've been to the quote unquote mountaintops of professional wrestling, and then they Impact is right now a step below those as far as pay and notoriety and things, but they're really giving it their all, it seems.
Agreed. I feel like that speaks volumes to the type of people that they are. If that is the case, they're putting their best foot forward. They're giving it all. They want to make sure that the Impact Tag Team division is elevated by them being there. That they're not just getting a paycheck, kind of like how they were in WWE, which wasn't their fault. But no, they're really. I'm excited. I feel like it's really done a lot for the tag team division.
Yeah, I agree. And what's great too is that we do get a tease for next week. We are going to see Doc Gallows wrestle one-on-one with Madman Fulton in next week's Impact. So that should be pretty interesting. We'll see if they keep that undefeated streak going for the Good Brothers. I imagine they do. But Doc Gallows hasn't done a whole lot of one-on-one in the recent years. So we'll see how it goes. So why don't you take us through this next tag match here, Sandy?
Okay. I freaking love this tag match, and I hope you did too.
Yep.
We have Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie versus Sasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan. And, we saw their match, was it last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago? That, it wasn't the best. I think we had some critiques to it, that it just didn't look clean. It was kind of sloppy. There was just a lot going on, and it kind of got lost. But man, if we can count this as a redemption, holy shit, they did it, because it was fantastic. I was blown away. This may be one of the best women's tag team matches that I have seen in, if not ever, then definitely in quite some time. I was super impressed. It was very fast paced, but it was very aggressive. And even though it was a faster paced match than maybe their previous match or what we're used to, they were able to execute everything flawlessly, perfectly. It told a great story, and I really think from what we see here at the end, for what we see for was it? I don't know if the match is going to be next week or at Bound for Glory. I can't recall. But I really do think they're going to bring some women's tag team titles into the picture, and I feel like this really solidifies that, especially after such a great match.
Yeah, and the match you're alluding to is the triple threat women's tag match next week that they tease between Rosemary and Taya, Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz, and then of course Havoc and Nevaeh, the other tag team. Yeah, no, I mean this match was really a really excellent match. It goes 9 minutes 15 seconds, flies by. It doesn't feel long. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like at any point that they should get out of there. All four women absolutely worked their asses off. The MVPs, I kind of would say are Taya and Kira Hogan, but that's not because the other ones aren't holding their own, right? Rosemary looked really good. Tasha Steelz looked as good as she's looked in the last few weeks. But ultimately, it ends in a kind of like a wing clipper kind of stunner by Rosemary that I thought looked pretty brutal. I liked the finish, liked the match. I'm excited to see what they kind of do here. If they do, I think I'm right there with you. Like I think they're going to do women's tag team championship belts, and I think they should.
I hope so. They have the talent there. I feel like they have enough women in there. If they do bring the belts, they may need to look into bringing more talent in. Maybe doing something like how AEW is doing, where they bring independent, unsigned talent to have these matches with their own talent. I think they could really benefit from doing something like that. Get more eyes on the product, get more talent in there, more variation, more storylines, different matchups that we would be unable to see otherwise. And I think
Yeah.
if they decide to go that route, it's the best thing that they can do. But man, I got to tell you, this match, I stopped taking notes as this match picked up because it was just so fantastic. It was hectic. It was perfectly executed. Like you mentioned, Taya and Rosemary get the win. If I have to say anything negative about it, I do not care for or like Rosemary's gear. It is so distracting to me.
It's a lot.
It's too much. There's a
It's a
lot
lot.
happening there, and it's too bulky, and it can be very distracting. But this is the best that I've seen her work, Rosemary, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. So it
No,
was
I agree
great.
with that. I thought Rosemary looked really good, but heads and shoulders of what we've seen out of her the past couple weeks, certainly. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I have my reservations about Havoc and Nevaeh as a tag team just because, sometimes they
Yeah.
kind of look lost. But hopefully, with the other two teams in there, hopefully we get a pretty good match. Like you said, I think it's next week. Um, we get another tag match. Seems to be kind of the theme of the night here as we're moving on. The Deaners, of course, which is Cody Deaner and Cousin Jake, take on Crazy Steve and Johnny Swinger as more fallout from the bridal party. This one goes 2 minutes and 49 seconds, and I feel like we're going to talk about it a lot less than that.
Oh yeah, it was just a comedy match, comedy nothing match. It was just there.
Yeah,
The whole thing was the nonsense between Swinger and Crazy Steve. They were trying to get something from his little
his
man purse
fanny pack.
thing,
Yeah, it was a
his
fanny
fanny
pack.
pack. And then yeah, that was it. The only thing that I remember really was just Josh in commentary saying talk about a cast of characters, and I was like, Josh, you are correct, sir. And then that's pretty much it. Let's
Yeah,
we
that
can
was
move
about the
on
only
from there.
thought the commentary could get out there because this match was over before
Yeah.
it started, pretty much. Of course, the Deaners pick up the win, defeating Crazy Steve and Johnny Swinger. Um, yeah, it was a match that happened.
Yep.
But I alluded to this earlier. We get a backstage interview with Kylie Ray, still just visibly distraught because they kind of show the clip of Susie kind of getting her arm broken again by Deonna Purrazzo, and the interviewer is like, what does it feel like seeing your best friend get her arm broken just now, like on the tape? And she's like, seeing it just now. How about seeing it again? Like I was forced to watch that happen, and she's really freaking out. And I've been somewhat critical about Kylie Rae's promo ability in the past. I've always felt like that's kind of the one spot she lacked. But this felt more raw. It felt more emotion. Um, I've actually really liked the promo work out of here from her.
Oh my God, yeah, it felt like it was her true emotions. She's upset, of course. She couldn't do anything to help Susie as Kimberly made her watch when Deanna broke Susie's arm off. Um, we do see Kimberly coming in and interrupting, completely mocking her, teases Kylie. Of course, we all expect Kylie to just kind of take it because she's so sweet, she's so nice, she's
Right.
smiley Kylie Ray. And Kimber, of course, goes in for the tease, and she does mention, hey, you don't know who Susie really is, which I thought was a good thing to throw in there for the storyline.
Yeah.
But Kylie just has had enough and goes in the attack on Kimber. Her this promo on her part, it was executed very well, and same with Kimberly. It felt
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty good backstage thing. I haven't really liked Kimberly's mic work either. But this
Mm.
was it wasn't a situation where she had to do a lot of it. Kylie kind of snaps, and you can see she doesn't know, like she's like upset with herself for snapping. She's upset about Susie. So we'll see if they kind of playing this up like Kylie's just kind of out of her head. She's not her in her head like her normal mentality. We'll see how that kind of plays in the weeks to come. Of course, we find out that next week we'll see Kylie Rae take on Kimberly in singles action. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. Um, from there, we go straight into which I thought was a pretty good segment here with Heath and Scott Demore talking contracts.
It. I was excited at first. I was like, oh yeah, here we go, possible contract negotiation. But unfortunately, it didn't go so well for Heath. We see
Mm,
Scott Demore grab this like folded up piece of paper that looked like a note. It looked like a bill.
yeah,
And he's like, oh yeah, we can definitely talk about negotiations here for Heath. And Heath is like, I got this. Pulls out a whole ass folder with multiple papers inside. And Scott Demore's like, oh, you did this yourself, and it looks like you had a lawyer do it.
right.
So it didn't go so well because apparently there were a lot too many zeros in the asking price for the contract, and lots of asterisks in this contract. So Scott Demore did not seem so pleased anymore. So poor Heath. We'll see where the negotiation goes.
Yeah, it gets heated. And what I thought was interesting too is that Heath actually name checks Monday Night Raw. When he's
Oh
he's
yeah.
like man, after I got fired, I went on Raw with wrestled Drew McIntyre. I'm like, wait, did he just said Raw and Drew
Are they
McIntyre?
allowed to say that?
I don't know. I mean, if it's not like he said anything negative. If
Yeah.
anything, he gave them a free plug on Access TV to tune in Monday nights on USA. But we see they're kind of playing fast and loose with this mentioning other companies thing, mentioning wrestlers outside their company. So I guess they're just going to keep doing that because I don't think Don Callis really cares. He,
I'm
he seems
into it.
like he's gonna like, what? Try me. Like you can't get mad at me for saying anything. All you can do is say don't say it again, right? I mean, there's no
Yep.
lawsuit to be had there because he didn't say Raw sucks. Um, so we'll see where it goes. Then we get a clip of EC3 cutting a promo in what looks like to be the foliage that is outside of the impact zone. Of course, Moose does not know where it is. And then he cuts a promo and drops the belt off of a walkway. I think we're supposed to be led to believe that it's a bridge over a river. It doesn't look anything like that. It kind of just looks like a little walkway bridge type thing. Um, and it just kind of keeps setting up what we're eventually going to get to with Bound for Glory. Moose in EC3 is officially happening there, and like I mentioned before, it is going to be in a quote unquote undisclosed location. So maybe it is amongst the foliage outside of the impact zone. Who knows? And then of course we go right into another Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan backstage. Much like the last one, this one does nothing for me.
Yeah, so Sammy finds Ken. Ken feels actually bad about attacking Eddie Edwards. Sammy encourages him. By encourage, I mean manipulates. Says that he's on the up and up as the old killer Ken Shamrock. And we see Ken eating that up as he attacks a poor bystander nearby. So we'll see. We'll keep seeing where this goes. Sorry that it's not doing anything for you, Josh.
It's not. It's not. And it's what really takes me out of it too is just this absolute cornball shit that Sammy keeps saying. Like, oh, look at this, it's got 45 million retweets. And it's like,
Like,
Sammy,
no,
come on.
no.
Like, come on, man. Like, do your hacker gimmick, that's fine. But to be like social media hacker guy that's caring about how many hits something is getting, like, I don't know if
Like,
the
who are you?
angle's
Neil Dashwood?
right. I don't know if it's supposed to be like, oh, Ken doesn't know anything about this. He might believe that it's 45 million. Now I'm pumping up his ego. But if that's the angle, it's a dumb angle. I'm just gonna say it. I just don't. Why would Ken Shamrock care how many people are liking his videos on Twitter?
Yeah, I agree. That when they threw that aspect in there in the last interview, I didn't care. That's the one thing that you can say is just taking people off of it completely. Because okay, is that your goal? Why would Ken care exactly?
Right.
But
Yeah.
we'll
So
see.
yeah. Whatever. So we get to the main event here of our October 6th episode of Impact, and it's a pretty good one here. We get Ace Austin and Madman Fulton versus the Motor City Machine Guns, who of course are in a non-title match here. Lots of really good action. I didn't take a whole lot of notes because so much was happening, but we see a theme here with these tag team matches that involve the Motor City Machine Guns, and that is the Motor City Machine Guns are pretty awesome.
They're so freaking great. I like Shelly. I want to meet this man one day, and I one day I don't know. There's so
Yeah,
much that you can learn from this man. He's so good. But of course, Ace Austin being 23 years old, I know you're very fond of this guy.
I am.
He's excellent in the ring. I just cannot get into what he looks like. And
I
that's
get
so
that.
unfair. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be like, I don't like this wrestler because of how he looks, but sorry.
Hey, no, but
um,
this as a wrestler. I mean, the look that you craft is very important.
yeah, no, it absolutely is.
If you don't have the look that the audience is reacting to, then I mean, you got to kind of think about that. But I think for the most part, people like his look, although it is a very much Gambit from X-Men vibe that I get from it. But as someone and I'll be perfectly honest about this, Andy, my favorite X-Men as a child, and probably now was Gambit. And it's because he could throw playing cards and then make them explode. I mean, let's be honest, as a kid, that was the coolest thing ever. And then in the cartoon, he had that really thick, horribly done Creole accent because he's from Louisiana, from the bayou. But no, getting back to Ace Austin, of course, yeah, I mean, he is 23. He's won the X Division championship and Impact. Is someone they obviously care a lot about,
Mhm.
and they keep putting him in some pretty big spots here. I will say, as far as his look goes, um, like as someone I've had gauged ears in the past, mine are all closed up now. Um,
Same.
Jeff Hardy is someone that is, has gauged ears that comes into play more than I'd like to see come into play. Um, that man gets his ears attached to things like it shouldn't happen. It makes me very sick. But it can be distracting because Ace wrestles with his gauges in, and so he takes one bad slam, and now the gauge is bouncing around the ring, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt or step on that or slip or something when they're going across. So at some point he should probably wrestle with those out, and that's all I'll say about his look.
I didn't even notice that, which is hilarious. I don't like the color purple, and I think it's just the purple hair really just kills me.
Well,
And
and
then
his
the
gauges are
eyeliner.
purple too. I
I
mean,
don't
it's pretty,
know.
so yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot of
damn it.
purple.
There's too much purple.
A lot of purple.
And another thing I do want to say that I've noticed over the past few weeks, there is way too much dubstep on Impact. Like so many of their entrances of music, it's like dun, 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 the whole like, is it dubstep? I don't know. It's the closest thing that I can think of.
Yeah.
Also, not a big fan. But that is seriously just being like super freaking nitpicky about my own personal taste. It's nothing bad
Sure.
on Impact. I just wanted to say that. I was watching this and I was like, oh my god, every other freaking entrance is just dun 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 dun.
Well,
Freaking hate it.
yeah. They could hire a CFO or somebody to come in and
Yeah,
do
because they're
something.
on the outs. They're on the out to WWE, right?
Yeah,
CFO,
CFO. Yeah, CFO's gone. Like it has been for about a year. So, hey, you know what?
Impact, get on it.
They could also call up our friend Rich Latta and have hey, say
Oh,
Rich, make us some intro music here, right? I mean, I'm sure Rich
hell
would
yeah.
jump. Hey, listen, I'm gonna right now. I'm gonna make the call just in case Gail wants to listen because of her drop. Hey, Gail, call up our boy Rich Latta. His social media stuff will be in our show notes. Definitely check him out. And then for the listeners, hey, check out Rich's stuff on Spotify, on YouTube. Really good stuff. But kind of getting back to the match a little bit here, and I'll agree with you about the music. They do need, even like Motor City Machine Guns music is kind of just, it's like driving like Detroit rock, so to speak. And
Hmm.
the guy's just crooning over it, Motor City. And it's just kind of like, all right, man, we get it. They're from Detroit. Okay. Just come on. Just stop it. Just take the vocal track out and the music is fine, but I guess they want to remind people they are the Motor City Machine Guns. But no, I thought it was a very good match. It goes about 13 minutes. Of course, there is some interference. It looks like it's going to happen from the North walking out. Your boy, of course, Ethan Page comes out
Man,
and
he looks good.
wearing his what I would call his stupid shorts again. I do not like his fashion style. Um, but him and Josh Alexander come out from the back. Looks like they're going to get involved. Good Brothers come out, and for some reason, I can't figure out why, but I guess it's because they're trying to position the Good Brothers as kind of a baby face, kind of a tweener thing. But they decide they're going to stop the North from interfering in the match, which leads to the Motor City Machine Guns winning. I don't really understand that part of it, but I guess it just happened.
Yeah, and the attitude of the Good Brothers is that they're very heelish, but at the same time, I feel like Impact's like realizing, okay, they're such big stars coming to Impact, they can't really be heels, but it's a weird dynamic. We've seen it kind of flip back and forth to where there are moments in matches where we're like, okay, are the baby faces, are they like what's happening here? Um, yeah, they
Yeah,
come out for the save from the North. Freaking Ethan Page every time. I can't believe I haven't said this already, but he looks so freaking good. Props to you, my man. But no, this match was super fun. Fulton looked mean as ever when he was tearing down Alex Shelley in the beginning of the match. There was
yeah,
I don't know if you recall this. Alex Shelley at one point grabbed Fulton's crotch,
yeah. I wasn't gonna bring that up because
and
it was very awkward.
it was so weird. He had a handful, and it wasn't just like for a moment for a distraction. Like I really hope it was planned because I mean Fulton just kind of looks down like what the hell. Like he was kind of
Yeah.
surprised, and I feel like everyone was surprised. I'm like, what happened there?
It felt like they were trying to do this like he's bigger than I expected, like height wise. So when he went to reach back to like hit
Uh,
him, I think, I don't know. I might be
I
trying
hope
to
so.
I might be trying to explain something that doesn't need to be explained and to just probably be forgotten about because it was a very strange moment and nothing happened because of it.
Nothing. So it was just him grabbing his crotch, and then Fulton still had him by the ropes, and I'm just like, what the fuck was that? He just molested poor Fulton for no reason. It was
Yeah.
so weird. But outside of that, oh my gosh, do you recall the Chris Sabin drop kick from the top rope to the back of the head of Ace Austin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, that looked so dangerous. There was a lot of whiplash from Ace Austin on that one, and it just reminded me of God, who was it? Paige. When Sasha did that to Paige when she came back from her
Yeah.
neck injury, that took her out again. I
Yeah.
did not like that, but hopefully he's okay. Would love to see less of that, but it looked terrifying.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I will say this too,
whew,
and we talk a lot about Alex Shelley, and rightfully so, but Chris Sabin holds his own in there as well, and when
the beast.
when they do their tandem offense, where they do the the kicks, and then they do the one guy runs and flips over the guy and holds the neck up so that the other guy comes off the ropes and does the drop kick. It's just, I mean, it's flawless every time they do it. You can tell they've done it a million times. But
Well,
still, every time is just, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's why these guys are good, right? It makes sense why they're the tag team champions right now. The common theme with a lot of professional wrestling is when they have these multi-man matches for championships, oftentimes the champion retains. That's kind of the money that you could put on it. I don't know. It really depends to me what the Good Brothers contract situation is and whether or not they're allowed to go to Japan. It's honestly what I think it kind of boils down to. If the Good Brothers aren't going to Japan at all, at least not for a while because of COVID, it makes sense to put the belts on them. But if they're going to go to Japan, right? New Japan just announced they're doing the World Tag League. They haven't announced anything. There's been a lot of Twitter chatter today because some of the AEW talent's been talking about World Tag League and Best of Super Juniors.
Oh, yeah.
Orange Cassidy tweeted, "Hey, when's Best of the Super Juniors?" or something along those lines, right? And of course, everyone's like, "Oh, I can't wait. Maybe they could do that." But there's some talent signed in some other places that kind of have these both ways contracts. Um, you know,
John Moxley.
John Moxley, Miro, aka Rusev, has said that he's got in his contract to be able to go to both. I believe that FTR has their contracts signed that way. And then obviously the Good Brothers, I'm fairly confident have the ability to go to Japan as well. So if they're going to go off and do a World Tag League, which might, it doesn't sound like it's way out of this world, not possible considering their history there. Um, we'll see what happens. I think we'll know based on what kind of the World Tag League roster gets announced, whether or not the Good Brothers will come up with the champions. That's my opinion. But they could surprise us all, and they could not do it, and then they don't win. But they've got this undefeated streak coming in, and I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. But for this match, Alex Shelley pins Fulton from a crossbody, and that is it for this huge tag team title shot at Bound for Glory. I honestly have no idea who's going to take it. We still have the build up for it. We had a couple of weeks. Like you mentioned, Doc Gallows and Madman Fulton are going to go at it next week. It could go either way, and there's lots, like you mentioned, lots of different factors to determine that. But based on the storyline, outside of the contract negotiations, just based on the stories that we've seen over the past few weeks, it's been since the anniversary. Actually, it's been a while. It's they're all so on par to each other that it could go either way. And no matter who wins it, I think it's gonna be fantastic because all these teams they're producing some of their best work right now.
Which will be interesting too, and it feels like, okay, so we had at Victory Road Josh Alexander pick up a win. This week's Impacts we have the Motor City Machine Guns pick up a win. Next week you have Doc Gallows against Madman Fulton, so a third tag team is going to have a win represented in the build-up. And we'll be interested to see if they don't get all four of them a win before Bound for Glory comes up. And that would be pretty interesting. You would call that traditionally 50-50 booking, but of course it's more like 25, 25, 25, 25 booking if you're doing the math there. I took a math test today. I passed it. I aced it, in fact. But, thank you. But yeah, no, I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of, we're starting to see this card shape up. We have all of our championship matches now booked for it. I'm getting excited for Bound for Glory. We might have to watch it together. It's a pretty big event.
That'd be fun.
We might have to, Dan Coffin is said that he wants to watch it. Jeremy will probably be interested in watching it. We'll have to see, kind of, we'll make sure that we keep the group small.
Watch party.
But yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely down for a watch party for that. For the listeners, definitely, you can pre-order Bound for Glory now on the Fight TV app. You don't have to wait until day of, minute of. We signal boosted. Gail had tweeted about that, so I want to make sure, especially since she did us a solid, that we're making sure that definitely get ready to purchase Bound for Glory. It's up on Fight TV right now. I don't know off the top of my head what the price is. Do you know what the price is, Sandy?
No idea.
I think it's 40. I think Slammiversary is 40. Yeah, $40. I mean, most wrestling pay-per-views, you're like $50-$60. Impact, you get a $40 one here. Definitely, it's going to be worth your money. Definitely, pre-order it if you can. Um, and you get when you buy it on the Fight TV, you get credit towards the Fight app to get other pay-per-views later on. Stack them up that way. But yeah, I'm excited. Great week of Impact Wrestling. We got another week next week of Impact Wrestling. But we might mix it up with some video game stuff. So let us know what you want to hear. Um, we're still waiting for suggestions. If anyone at all has a suggestion on a video game topic to enter into the giveaway that Dan was so gracious to put together for us, definitely send it over to 8bitsuplex@gmail.com. Tweet it at us at 8bitsuplex on Twitter, or reach out to us personally. Sandy, why don't you go ahead and run through your plugs, your sign-offs, anything else you want to add?
I want to plug Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling and Jay Lethal's Academy in Tampa Bay. We're located actually in Pinellas Park. If you're in the area, like I mentioned earlier, and you want to chase your dreams, there's no better place to do it in this area than with Jay Lethal. Also, check out Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling. Our shows are on the Fight TV app as well. They're available for free. You can watch my 2 matches, which I'm very proud of, with recently signed talent Brandy Lawrence. She was recently signed to NXT. I'm so happy and excited for her. You can find me on Twitter at Sailor Zelda, as in Sailor Moon and The Legend of Zelda, because I love them both so much. And on Instagram at Sandy Gaviria, Gaviria. That is my Instagram. Follow me on there. And of course, you can follow the 8-Bit Suplex podcast on Twitter. Oh my gosh, how did I mess that one up?
That's okay. It's it's been a long week. It's been a busy week. Definitely do that. And then of course, we do have a friend of the show that did pick up a 8-Bit Suplex T-shirt. So thank you to Carson for that. Right, there's the right name. Okay, good. I got the name right. When you have kids and you're a dad, first names just don't exist anymore. You just forget them all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've been called the name of the dead dog, just because it's just where my dad's at. I get it. As a dad now, I get it. But definitely head on over to prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. Make sure you pick up your favorite Social Suplex Podcast Network t-shirts, whether that be ours, whether that be Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcast, One Nation Radio, Ricky and Clive, and of course the Social Suplex Podcast Network shirt, which is pretty cool. Make sure you check out all of the shows across your podcast apps, including ours. Make sure you subscribe, rate 5 stars, leave a review. Check out All Things Elite. We have the Grave Consequences podcast. Grown Men Watch This Shit has made its return. Keeping It Strong Style, as I mentioned, One Nation Radio, Ricky and Clive. And then, of course, the Great Match Generator that Danny is doing as well through our podcast network feed. Check out all those on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean. There's more. I know.
Everywhere.
Everywhere you get your podcast, we're there. And really, like I said, rate all of our shows 5 stars because we've earned it. We put in the work. We have a lot of fun doing this.
We're here to entertain you.
And honestly, I think we entertain ourselves too. We have a lot. I have a lot of fun doing this. Yeah. I think I can speak for you, Sandy. You have a lot of fun doing this. It's nice to know that more than just like my mom is downloading this. So thank you guys for listening. That's pretty much all I got. Definitely check out Tampa Bay Pro, like she said. Sandy, I might have to limber up and kind of get in the ring. Maybe I gotta maybe I gotta show you some moves. Maybe I gotta come off the top rope, give the old Macho Man elbow. Maybe, hey, listen, I've been known to jump over things in a past life. I do, kid. Of course, Josh Smith, co-host of Keeping It Strong Style, he's training at a rival school. So maybe you and Josh might have to mix it up a little bit. Get in the ring, have some interest into wrestling.
Oh man. It'll be the Social Suplex host battle of the ages. Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to whoop his ass. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We are a little bit. He's not match ready yet, but I'll make sure he knows when he is match ready. He's got his match lined up with you, Sandy. Leonardo de los Santos, ready to punch him in the face. So, anywho, for Sandy, for myself, thank you again. We'll see you all next week.